There's always a man, there's always a city, there's always a lighthouse.
Now would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a...
Let's go out to play, Daddy.
Go back to the Sarum from which you came!
It's time to finish this.
Catch!
That'll do. Elizabeth!
All right. I don't want it to be the focus, but what's going on here? You
We're
sharing water,
exchanging fluids.
exchanging fluids.
Thank you.
Is that coffee?
I hope so.
Looked like Diet Coke. Might have been Diet Coke.
Neither.
I'm not done talking about No Man's Sky.
Okay.
Well, actually, I might be done. You're not done talking about No Man's Sky. So last week, I guess there was a early version of the game sent out to press. There was a leak. There was all this.
There
stuff.
was no copy sent.
There was
to
no
the press.
Okay.
We paid over $100 to have a copy overnighted to us from New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you played a bunch of the game pre this, I guess, 1.03 patch, which came out on Monday. There was a big README that Sean Murray wrote about it, adding quite a lot of content to it. So I guess I want to ask you about the sort of main differences between the game that we all saw on launch and that experience, because it's sort of like a weirdly fascinating insight into day one patches and how much you can fundamentally change a game mere hours before it came out. So what were some of the big differences that you experienced between those two versions?
So the two big ones for me, I'll start with the first, which is your inventory and how much a single unit can hold in terms of resources.
Right, yeah.
So one slot in your inventory can hold, before the patch, it was 100 units of a specific material. And that was the same for your ship as it was for your exosuit. Now your ship can hold 500 per unit and your exosuit can hold 250 per unit.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like my inventory is constantly full. And that's got 5 times more.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Right. So that makes the process of mining a much more gratifying thing, because I'm not just getting a little bit of wealth. I'm getting wealthy. Like I am collecting a lot of stuff and I'm going back with my coffers full to trade in.
That seems like a crazy balance change.
Yeah, it hasn't really impacted the bigger picture actions that I'm taking in terms of jumping solar systems and stuff like that. It's mostly the moment to moment. So I don't think of it as dramatic. I just think of it as nice to have.
That's nuts. I saw a lot of quality of life sort of stuff Rob was telling us about.
Yeah.
About, like, for instance, in the menus, you couldn't just hit back.
You couldn't just hit circle. You'd have to, for every action you choose in a menu, you have to hold down the X button with a cursor over a menu option. To exit out, you used to have to do that as well. Now you can just hit circle.
That's nuts.
But it got even worse. Like when you were comparing, if you were talking to a trader and you're like, maybe I want to buy your ship. Now, when you look at their ship, it tells you the price, and then there's an option to compare what items each ship has.
Yeah.
Before, it didn't show you the price, so you automatically had to go to that second menu. And then to get out of that, you had to do that holding down the cursor again. So it's a lot more efficient in that sense.
In Sean's README, or his dot plan, I guess, he also talked about how the 3 paths, there were 3 unique paths to play through the game, and they sort of like served these up in a more, I guess, literal sort of sense. Was the start of the game much different, or the way the
start of the game was pretty similar. The game basically guides you into accessing your a hyperdrive, which lets you jump from solar system to solar system, and then it kind of frees you up to do what you want. You make a decision the moment you start the game, which is you sort of see this distress beacon, and it belongs to Atlas, or the Atlas movement, and you decide to activate it and somehow become in tune with it. That remains the same, but eventually, once you get your hyperdrive, it's sort of like, all right, you go to your map. There are 2 options: free exploration or the path to the center of the galaxy. But the more you start playing, you start to, if you activated that distress beacon at the beginning, Atlas will reach out to you and say, hey, your destiny lies in the stars. So that says activate your hyperdrive. So when you do that and you go up into the galactic map, with all the solar systems, it then says, hey, Atlas has something for you over here. And again, that's not really towards the center of the galaxy. And so then you can choose to follow that stuff.
It's interesting. Apparently that whole thing was rewritten as well. James Swallow, who's the writer on Deus Ex, himself and Sean Murray basically rewrote the entire Atlas path as well between these patches. That's pretty
I'm glad
nuts.
to know. I read that and I forgot about it, but I'm glad to hear that it actually is a path and not just a meandering.
Circling the drain.
So the Atlas path, just going straight to the center as fast as possible, was the third
I don't know.
So the third are
Yeah, let's not.
it's
get-
not.
yeah.
Well, he
It's just not.
mentions
I
it.
thought I maybe
Yeah.
just missed it.
No,
or
no,
something.
you can just read it off his update because he mentions it there.
I don't actually can't actually see it here on this update. It's the same. It's the one we sort of alluded to earlier. It's the other names, right?
Yeah, it's these two travelers that they have a lot of higher learning under their belt. They're very smart and experienced, and you encounter them once in a while. Now, it's not clear.
And I haven't encountered them yet. I only heard about them, but I haven't actually seen them yet.
They present you with, I think, 4 options to aid your quest, whatever it may be, and I think it allows you to pivot as well. So if you want to change your direction and say, maybe I don't want to do Atlas anymore, I want to do this other thing, it'll give you an incentive to make that not like a really difficult decision.
Okay.
But somehow you can follow them as well, and that's not totally clear to me at this point how you do that.
A lot of other additions to the game, including just more variety, apparently, like terrain, generation, the atmospheres of the planets themselves, the diversity of the creatures. Apparently, there was no feeding before of
No,
the
that's not
animals.
true. There was feeding.
Oh, no, maybe the animals didn't feed. Maybe they didn't have, like, the ecology or something there.
I think what you can do now is you can feed them a specific element,
Oh, right.
and if you
That just sounds cruel in some cases. Sorry. Just give them like a radioactive
plutonium.
You're not,
Yeah.
no, I think I forget how it works, but essentially I think they laid out the fact that if you give them the certain element, they'll befriend you versus just not
Yeah.
be hostile.
Or they poop something out.
Boop.
I keep hearing that they might poop something out.
Like those Colombian cats, not to go off topic.
What?
The coffee, they feed the
civets.
cat. You told me about this,
the
yeah.
coffee.
Civets,
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's why
Anyway,
I just poured in your coffee.
But one of the other changes that's really nice is they let you scan the terrain from your ship, or before
Right.
you would have to land to scan or use your eyes. But because of the draw distance, it's hard to really use visual scanning method.
Right. God, that's insane. You couldn't do that from the ship before.
Yeah, so you would have to land and you couldn't do it in outer space either. You couldn't.
Wow.
So you would essentially just yeah.
That's nuts.
So it's made a lot of things easier.
Apparently, one of the things I did notice as well, at least from the trailers and from the version I'm playing, is that the amount of pop-in and artifacting that happens. I mean, it's still there.
It's still there.
It's there and in there, and it reminds me of like GTA 4s, where it was like there all the time, but you kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as severe, I think, as what it was previously. At least in like.
I noticed it immediately, and I was like, "Yeah, this is better." And then
Right.
now it just feels normal.
Yeah.
There's still some popping, but
So, do you think interesting that all this is it a worry to you when you see like all of this crazy stuff getting rushed into a game last minute? No. Is it just a reality of going gold that like to
Yes.
get this many boxes printed, you need to
yeah, it's the reality of having someone publish your game.
right?
That was a really interesting. Did you read that blog post Remy wrote
Oh,
it? Remy Ismail?
Yes, yeah, really good.
About
yeah.
like what going gold really means and
Yeah.
what it doesn't mean as much as we thought it would, and how like Hello Games was still essentially working the same hours in the last month since going. Yeah.
Well, and they're beholden to a dead, an outdated system basically, where
Yeah.
people can publish by themselves on Steam and control how all of that rolls out.
Right.
Console makers have to, this unspoken quality seal of quality and like all this and that like publishers expect games to meet that, and there's all sorts of milestones and weird business stuff involved.
We had Rob and I did a trip recently down to another studio, and one of the heads of the studio was saying like, yeah, hopefully later this week we'll pass cert, whatever that means anymore. So I was like, what are he talking about? This is before like the No Man's Sky stuff been coming out. Yeah.
You can pick that up on RamyIsmail.com as well. That blog is really good. RAMIISMAIL. Yeah, fascinating read. Crazy, I guess, that like they were working on this up until launch, and they will continue to work on it.
Yeah.
But I looked at the credits on the game, and it's nuts because it's basically one page. It's like 20 odd people who work at Hello Games. Then the next page is like a couple of people who I knew, like they're all PR managers on there, and a couple of other people like they're saying thank you to. And then it's like 10 pages of Sony.
Yeah.
It's just like QA and like
Yeah.
biz dev, and like every single like Adam Boyes is on there. Like every person who was even touched a Sony product's name is on it. Yeah, it really shows you this game was made by a tiny, like a very for the type of game it is, and especially considering none of them have really made a game like this. Like they're all, they made Joe Danger previously. They've all worked on bigger games like Burnout and stuff like that, working in sort of the wider South England game development world. But yeah, it's nuts.
What's really exciting for me is that they have gotten to the point to release this game, and what that means is they're offering what they promised. Now they get to deliver on the things they didn't promise. because they didn't know if they could pull it off.
Do you think they're going to add to it?
The next update that they said is going to let you build your own outposts.
Oh,
You're
really?
going to get freighter ships.
What? Really?
Yeah, yes, you're going to have permanent pets. Like, they're going to keep adding to this game.
Somebody asked me on Twitter earlier, the intended lad is building outposts. I was like, nah.
I probably won't want to. I hated it in Fallout, but like, I'm just super stoked that okay, the lattice is there. Now they can just keep tacking things onto it, and hopefully that they work and make it great.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact that this is like Minecraft 1.0 now.
Yeah.
And then they get to
Yeah.
add to it. Interesting stuff. Like